September 24th, 2025 was the last day we received a real update for ShindoLife. While many people point to July 30th, 2023 as the game's final major update, the truth is that Shindo continued to receive changes afterward. In fact, we've seen around 30 balance updates since then. The problem is that most of those changes, especially throughout 2024 and beyond, have been widely considered disappointing by the community. In this video, I want to take a closer look at what went wrong over the past few months, how Shindo reached its current state, and whether Update 243 still has a realistic chance of ever being released. After the extremely disappointing Update 242, which in my opinion created one of the worst metas this game has ever seen, we had to wait nearly 3 months before getting any indication that something might be happening behind the scenes. The first message we received didn't really tell us much. Rell simply stated that they were aware of some issues and suspected that Roblox Studio might be responsible for them. The problem is that they never explained what exactly they were working on. And after Update 242, there were an absurd number of bugs that needed fixing. I'm not even talking about the meta at this point. There were countless gameplay issues that had been affecting the game for months. Because of that, the most reasonable assumption was that they were referring to bug fixes. But even then, we couldn't be sure. The statement was simply too vague. Then, another month passed with almost complete silence. The only notable updates were Rell saying they were coming back and adding the ability to use in-game commands without chat verification due to Roblox's new moderation policies. A day later, we learned that Rell was aware of the forged/Shindai Akuma fan glitch. The thing is, this wasn't even one of the game's major issues. It was a bug, sure, but it didn't completely disrupt gameplay the way other problems did. Meanwhile, abilities like planetary demolition could literally break entire matches, lock players out of multiple game mechanics, and often force a full game restart. There were plenty of other bugs on that same level, and some abilities like Tetsuo Kaijin simply didn't work properly at all. Then, on January 10th, we got information about planned changes to the Pro rank system. On paper, that sounded promising. The problem was that Rell gave almost no details. We had no idea what was changing, how significant those changes would be, or whether they would actually improve the game. At that point, all we could do was speculate and hope that something meaningful would eventually come from it. By the end of January, we got yet another message claiming that Roblox Studio was causing development issues, which honestly isn't even worth discussing at this point. Then, on April 4th of this year, we finally got what looked like the first real teaser for future content, only for absolutely nothing to happen for the next 2 months. To be honest, at this point, we shouldn't expect anything major from Update 243, besides whatever was teased in the image Rell posted. Let's quickly analyze what we're actually looking at. The image shows 2 floating orbs, one purple and one blue. Because of the aura surrounding the character, this is probably some kind of mode rather than a regular move. In the background, there's another figure, but honestly, it doesn't tell us much. What is interesting is that the character appears to be using the Minakami puppet and the shark race. That could mean Shark is getting some changes, although I personally doubt it. As for what this new thing could actually be, I see 3 possibilities. The first is a Mensa rework. That's possible, but I don't really buy it. Most of Mensa's visual effects are purple, while the teaser clearly introduces blue effects as well. The second possibility is a completely new Bloodline. I also doubt that. The game already has more Bloodlines than it knows what to do with, and many of them have been neglected for years. Adding another one instead of fixing the existing roster would be peak Rell logic. The third option, and in my opinion the most likely one, is a Minakami rework. The puppet in the teaser points heavily in that direction. If that's the case, we'll probably also get another Doku Tengoku style move thrown into the game. Another completely unbalanced ability that people will spend months complaining about. And let's be honest, RELL's track record with balancing hasn't exactly inspired confidence. We've already seen masterpieces like Doku Tengoku, Jinshiki, and Rei Karada. Their balancing philosophy seems to consist of either giving random things buffs nobody asked for, like Emerald in Update 239, which almost nobody even played, or releasing something so absurdly overpowered that it makes you want to throw your monitor out the window. Jinshiki is probably the best example of that. Now that we've covered the potential new content, let's talk about what we can realistically expect from Update 243. We're definitely not getting the current meta removed, despite how incredibly skill-based it supposedly is. So thank you, RELL Games. Everyone say thank you to Jinshiki. We'll probably get some balance changes, but not the ones people are actually asking for. Communication between RELL Games and the player base is worse than the upload schedule on Senju's channel. And if you get that reference, you already know exactly what I mean. Bug fixes? Important quality of life improvements? Fixes for issues that players have been complaining about for months? I think we all already know the answer to that. What we can expect, however, are some spin codes, a few RELL coin codes, and maybe a handful of minor adjustments. So realistically, Update 243 is looking more and more like another Update 239. A couple of changes, a bit of hype, and nothing that truly improves the game in a meaningful way. But after this, we'll talk about what Shindo actually needs if RELL genuinely wants to save the game. If we're being completely honest, over the last few months, Rell has managed to get almost everything wrong. But there are three major issues that stand out above the rest. The first, and by far the biggest, is communication. Or, more accurately, the complete lack of it. People often say that developers have poor communication with their community. The problem with Shindo is that there isn't even bad communication. There is no communication at all. There are no balance polls, no discussions with players, no feedback posts, no attempts to gather community opinions before making major changes. Nothing. At least with RELLSeas, you occasionally get the feeling that the developers are listening. With Shindo, it feels like the game has been put on autopilot. The situation has gotten so bad that reporting bugs is practically impossible. If you ask about certain issues, you'll often get the impression that nobody really cares anymore. And the worst part is that even when Rell did communicate with players, they often ignored the things people were actually asking for. Take Update 240 as an example. Instead of addressing the major complaints surrounding the meta, balance, and bugs, we got what felt like 20 buffs to random Kenjutsu abilities. Seriously, who was asking for that? The second issue is moderation. Now, to be clear, my problem isn't with moderators as people. My problem is simply that, based on some of the tickets I've seen, it genuinely feels like many moderators have never actually played the game at a competitive level. Players trying to appeal bans often end up having to explain game mechanics, bugs, or unintended interactions to the moderators themselves. Think about how ridiculous that is. A player gets punished because of a bug caused by Rell Games, and then has to spend time explaining the bug to the people reviewing the appeal. There are even cases where players get reported because moderators simply don't know how certain mechanics work. A good example is the hyper armor interaction on Rei Karada's second move. I wouldn't be surprised if multiple players were punished simply because the mechanic wasn't properly understood. Honestly, the moderation side of Shindo deserves its own video one day. There's probably enough material there for an entire discussion. The third major problem ties directly into the first one. the lack of any proper bug reporting system. Because of Rell's increasingly closed-off approach to community feedback, players have almost no way to report issues that need fixing. As a result, bugs pile up. Then more bugs pile up on top of those bugs. And eventually, you end up with the current version of Shindo, where it feels like half the game is being held together by duct tape and hope. When players can't report issues, developers don't receive feedback. When developers don't receive feedback, problems never get fixed. And that's exactly where Shindo finds itself today. Honestly, the answer isn't that complicated. The first thing they need to do is improve communication with the player base. Nobody is expecting the golden days of Shindo updates to return overnight. Nobody expects update 212 levels of content every month. But at the very least, we could get a major update focused entirely on fixing the game and addressing the issues players have been complaining about for years. Even something as simple as a community-driven balance patch every few months would be a huge improvement over what we have now. The second thing is obvious: fix the bugs. At this point, some race movement abilities don't even function properly anymore. There are broken mechanics, bugged abilities, and interactions that have been left untouched for months. A game can't move forward when basic systems stop working. The third thing would be properly training moderators on how the game actually works. Moderators shouldn't have to learn mechanics from players during appeal tickets. They should already understand the systems they're moderating. That alone would solve a surprising number of problems. And finally, the game desperately needs another full balance pass. Bloodlines need adjustments. Races need adjustments. Entire sections of the meta need adjustments. Over time, Shindo has become slower, less dynamic, and significantly less enjoyable than it used to be. The game needs changes that encourage variety and creativity, instead of forcing players into the same handful of builds over and over again. The reality is that there are so many things that need fixing that it's hard to even list them all. But here's the problem. I don't think Rell is going to do any of it, at least not with their current approach. Maybe update 243 will release. Maybe it won't. Maybe we'll get another teaser, another promise, or another screenshot that tells us absolutely nothing. But until something actually changes, all we can really do is keep waiting for an update that may not even exist. Searching for an update that doesn't exist.